I grew up watching a television network that was owned by, created for, and supported by Black people. As a kid, it was a heavy dose of Donnie Simpson's Video Soul. Then as a teenager, I came home to Rap City with Big Tigger in the basement and See This World and Hits from the Streets. That was back when Ananda was hosting Teen Summit. AJ and Freeze 106 in Park. Ricky Smiley and Bruce Bruce's Comic Views. Tavis Smiley had B.E.T. Tonight. And I ain't gonna lie, man, on them weekends, I was trying to stay up, man. Trying to make it to midnight so I could watch B.E.T. uncut. You know what I'm talking about? But then Robert and Sheila Johnson got divorced, sold the network. And after he would step down from running it a few years later, everything was different. Now, to be fair, all of the TV stations that were centered around music at the time also changed. There were less music and culture and more reality TV. And I mean, Deborah Lee, she tried her best to maintain a positive culture, but it seemed like our content was no longer tailored to us. It followed their trends, and somewhere along the lines, it lost the audience. Looking back, it seems to me that with B.E.T. being Black owned, we owned more than a network. We owned our image. Ownership in our image, as we've learned the hard way, was important. Because if we don't own what we put out, we can't control how we're put out. Not only was B.E.T. being the #1 network to our community important because of what they put out, it was also important because of the standard it set in what Black imagery is. So you can't put out that fake shit when the authentic is a click away. Nah, you can't set that KFC next to Big Mama's chicken on this table. Look at the imagery of Black people in 90s sitcoms and tell me that we weren't represented properly. I mean, look at The Martin Show. Look at how pro-Black the cast was. Look at how often they wore HBCU sweatshirts on major network television. Look at The Fresh Prince, The Wayans Brothers, The Jamie Foxx Show, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Living Single. Yeah, Overton character was a little dingy and Kim Cole's character Sinclair was a little goofy, but we have people like that. A lot of people didn't like the Wandas and Shanae's, understandably so. But can we talk about how beautiful and wholesome Holly Robinson Peete was? Can we talk about how much of a Queen Latifah really was? 90s television showed our range. It showed how different we can be. And above all, to not put us in a box because it's all Black. From Will Carlton and Jazz to Steve Eddie and Waldo, Uncle Phil Carl Winslow, Pops to Rock to Uncle Junior, both Aunt Viv, Aunt Helen, Harriet, Thea, Jackie Warren, to the young women, Laura, Lisa, Kimberly, Ashley, Tiffany. And I don't care how y'all feel about them today, we are not going to sit here and act like Tia and Tamara was not on all of our future wives list. Shit, by the time I was 13, I had my entire life with Tia Mowry planned out. There are very few parents out there who would have a problem with their sons or daughters tuning into any of that programming, especially in comparison to what's available today. And even outside of television, you weren't worried about your daughters dressing like TLC or SWV. Hell, JJ Fad was hella fly in that Supersonic video. This is all a result of B.E.T. being Black owned and operated and being #1 in our community. They put out a proper image of us to the world and everything else that was Black related had to follow suit. What is our image today? Well, what do we own today? In fact, the better question is, what do we own today that we choose to patronize? Because while B.E.T. was the example I chose to use, we had other publications, magazines like Jet, Ebony, and Essence, record labels like Motown, LaFace, and So Def, radio stations with big name DJs like Here in Vegas, 88.1 with Galaxy Glenn and the Queen of Flow Carlea. All of these Black owned things played a role in keeping a respectable image intact because the talent alone was enough for us to be profitable with our own people. Today our image is shit, so again I ask, what do we own? Not enough land, not enough homes, not enough banks to give our brothers a loan. What do we own? The skin on our backs. We rent and we ask for reparations, then they hit us with tax. You already know who those lines is. The undisputed GOAT, Nasir. Unfortunately, he also said I'm a Columbia record slave on the same track. 2002, Black Zombie, The Lost Tapes. My lines? Barnum and Bailey on the daily with this shit y'all be on. Dangle a dollar in front of a nigga, watch a nigga perform. And while I wrote those lines a long time ago, I was stuck a few months ago when I was carpooling with one of my boys and we on our way to work and he told me something that one of his boys told him. He said Black people were raised to be talented. And that messed me up because We're put on a court, a field, a stage, in front of a microphone, an instrument, a camera, all with hopes that this is what's going to get us out of here, going to make us a star, going to get us rich. And that, like many things, has its root in chattel slavery, where slaves who had the ability to put on a good show and entertain a guest gained favor with massa. And that's when it hit me that it's not even the money that's important to us, it's the attention. Attention is a bigger currency than money in our communities, and our image suffers because of this. Like we claim it's about the bag, but it can't be about the bag, because if it was really about a bag, we'd be pursuing STEM fields instead of NFL fields. We'd be in science labs instead of recording labs, because that's where that Elon Musk bag comes from. That Bill Gates bag comes from technology. That Jeff Bezos bag comes from problem solving. Our biggest, that Robert Smith bag, comes from investing in those things. Those bags aren't stopped by a torn ACL or a diss track or an inability to make another hit song in an ever-changing industry. So it can't be about the bag. No, instead of gaining favor with massa, now it's about gaining favor with the masses. Achieving that ultimate goal of having someone you don't know who you are. Getting attention by any means necessary, even if it means selling out, selling your soul, selling a lie, or selling something else. That's why regular middle-class people will spend $1,000 on a bag that carries the same amount of stuff that a $12 bag does. Struggle to put a car note on a Benz rather than getting a Camry or a Malibu. Buy a home that they can't afford to furnish. It's because the validation that they'll receive from people knowing that they've attained that is much more valuable to them than the money that they paid to get it. How does this affect our image? Well, what does one do when they can't afford such material things? They tattoo their faces. They press record and twerk. They press record and perform a sex act. They press record and flex weapons. They press record and flash money. Sucker punching random people or hanging a phone from the ceiling. They leave the home with barely any clothes on. They wear orange, blue, or purple hair. They put nails in their hair. They walk around with semen on their faces. At the intersection of money and attention, we turn on attention lane every single time. And where either one of those intersects with morality, we blow through the red light. What does that do for an overall image? We are not content with ourselves. We have black women losing their lives to get BBLs, as if that procedure wasn't created for other women to compete with them. If you was born without that baby, that's okay. There are other things that make you attractive. Ownership is our key to everything. Everything. It starts there and it's immediately followed by inclusion. B.E.T. was successful when owned by the Johnsons because they understood how diverse our community was. They were accepting of that and the programming reflected that. But I'll touch on this more in a future video where I'll talk about the divides in our communities.